Okay, so these are the stones we're going to wrap today. There's a Paradise Falls Herkimer Diamond, and we think a Smoky Quartz, but we're not sure. So we're going to start out with 21 gauge square wire and 21 gauge half round wire. The half round I've already gone ahead and cut into short pieces, and I've turned the end over just to make it quicker and easier. So what I'm going to do is cut the lengths pretty long to incorporate the whole stone. So again, this is our square 21 gauge from Rio Grande. You can get it online. And what I do is I put my finger on the end and line up the wire and then cut it to length. These are sprue cutters. You can get these on Amazon. They work really well. So when you're wrapping, you always have to take into account the width of your stone. So after you've cut a few wires and you get them to lay next to each other, which these are not, you have to keep turning it until they lay nice and flat, like that. And they're still turned a little bit, hold on. And if the wire gets twisted, then you might have to start over, because you want these nice and flat. Basically, you want them to look like that. As you can see, these are twisted, so this is what you're going for when they lay next to each other. So let me just try. We're going to cut some more here. This wire is very twisted. Sometimes that happens. So you just got to take the ones that are too twisted out of the pile, out of the stack up, until you get them all perfectly flat. Okay, so this is what you're looking for. You can see that they're all laying right next to each other. None of them are turned. So that's what you want. Just like that. So once you get to this point, I like to just check it against the stone to make sure that we're going to have enough wire and it's wide enough, and we do. The wider the stone, the more wire you need stacked up. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and get our 21 gauge half round, which I already have pre-cut. And I bent a little hook on the end. So what I do, a little hook on the end like that. So then what I do is I let it hang. Then I grab my pliers, flatten it out. You got to make sure the wire stays flat. So at this point. So we're going to go like that. Now you want to grab this in one continuous motion. You want to bind your wires together, keeping this flat so it stacks up. If the wire breaks, it's not a big deal. You just grab it and keep going. Okay, so what you end up with looks like that. So now we're going to grab our cutters and we're just going to lift this back, cut it on the back side. And then give it a crimp. So it's going to look like that. Now this is going to be inside. The stone's going to be inside here. So this is what it should look like on the outside.
Let me see if I can get a close up of it. Come on, focus.
So you want to put that, the first one you do in the middle, you should still be able to slide it, so don't squeeze it so tight that you can't move it. So basically we're going to eyeball and just put that one in the middle. So now we're going to repeat that same step 2 more times. Again, you got to make sure that the wires all flat next to each other, no twisted wires. My hands are dirty because I was painting earlier. So again, one continuous motion. Wire breaks, don't worry about it. Just grab it, keep going. You want those wraps right next to each other. No gaps, no spaces. You want it perfectly. Then you can give it a light crimp. You end up with that. Get your cutters. And this one I'm going to bend back, cut in the middle. And just squeeze them down so they end nicely on this side. This side, nice and clean. Now we can continue. So we have one in the middle. We're going to bring one out here. This could be it there. We're going to do one more on this side. These vape pen holders are perfect for pre-cut bindings. They work great. Again, one continuous motion all the way around. Wire breaks, don't worry about it. Now I'm not sure how that happened, but that's 24 gauge wire and that's 21 gauge wire, so that's no good. Okay, not sure how that got in there. Do it again. One continuous motion. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And basically I'm counting to 6 each time so that they're all even. And we're just going to bend that down flat. Okay, now you can see this gap out here on the end. That doesn't look good. It's jewelry. You want it to be perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that last wrap off. It's good to have one of these dental picks. Okay, I'm just going to bend it back, cut this off. And now you can see there's no gaps. They're really nice and even. So that's basically step one for your wire wrap. Now we're going to take our stone that's going to be on the bottom. We'll take a look at it, see what the nicest side is. And then what you want to do is this binding you want to be in the very middle of the stone. So you line up in the middle, and then I roll this up to see where this next binding is going to go. I'm just going to move that back a little bit. Oop, maybe a bit too far. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that same process. Go like here, and then rotate the stone. It's going to end up right at the top. That's what we want. Put it back in the middle. Then we're going to rotate the stone. That's going to be at the top. That's exactly what we want. So now is the tricky part, is keeping this in the middle while you bend it around. So you can see I missed a little bit. It's not a big deal. It's going to be like that. So now I'm going to take just above the binding a little bit. I'm going to bend that out. I'm going to slide the binding up a little bit more. And we're just going to keep messing with the wire until this lays in there perfectly. Might take a little bit. And the stone's round, so it's extremely challenging to wrap. So now we grab this one about here, bend that out, gonna bring this up, same principle. I'm gonna straighten this wire a little bit, find the good side of our stone. This is really hard because it's round.
Oval or teardrop work better.
I'm talking about the edges. The edges are rounded, so the wire's not like gripping it like a normal cab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the last wire and I'm going to wrap it around. So starting to take shape a little bit. So This is going to kind of hold it in place. Okay. And I made it too tight. This is extremely difficult stone to wrap. I should have used a different one for a video. That's okay, I'll get it. I'm determined. So you can see the stone fits in there quite nicely. I mean, honestly, you really want this to be in the middle, but because this is such an odd shaped stone, I think it's just going to have to be off center just a little bit. So now what we do is we're going to go to the back. Let's just bend this out of the way. And we're going to grab this wire and we're going to give it a bend. We're going to come down to the opposite side. It's not locked in yet, so it's being quite difficult. Okay, so we're going to come to the front now and grab this top corner and bend that in, so we end up with that. I'm going to come to this back side. I'm going to bend that in. Down here, I'm going to bend that. The stone keeps turning though because it's round. This is very difficult. Okay, so at this point, this is what we're looking like. Okay, so we have it captured. Here, 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 here. Now this side's kind of away, so we're going to bring this in more so it's captured better. Okay. So that's basically step 2, capturing the stone. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to cut this wire and we're going to do like a rosette. I'm going to grab just the very end of it. I'm going to roll it over, crimp it down, and then just roll it in. And just kind of terminate that right there, like that. Now we're going to straighten these out. Now this Herkimer is going to go on top of this, which now that I look at it, looks kind of big.
You know, enough wire.
Yeah. Okay, so here's where we left off. The only thing I did off camera was this binding, because I almost forgot, whenever you do 2 crystals, you need to have 3 bindings at the bottom and 2 at the top in order to capture the stone. So we went with a little bit smaller Herkimer for this video. And I think it's going to look great. It is like a super gem from Paradise Falls, mined by yours truly. So that's going to sit in there like that. That's what we're going for. Now, I'm going to lose one of these wires and use it as a decoration. We could almost lose two, but I'm just going to do one for now. But we're going to go ahead and bind this other side. You could do it at the beginning, but the problem is when you use this wire to stop and wrap around, you're going to have to cut it and that binding's going to come off. So I just bind them at this stage. So I already have my pre-bent wire here. I'm going to lay that in there. Okay. I'm not left-handed, so this is going to be difficult for me. Get these laying next to each other. Okay. It's just not crimping for me. Oh, because it turned. Okay. So I'm just going to do it by hand. Okay, so we got the other binding on. Now we're just going to go ahead and lay the crystal in here. And we're going to bend the top in and around. Okay, so we can kind of see like that. Now this binding's got to be moved up a little bit. That's if it will move up. And there we go. That's going to go in. Bring that out. And so this is going to capture the crystal like that. So now we take the last wire. We're going to kind of bend this down a little bit. We're going to crimp this over. And we're just going to twist this around so it stays in place. And now we have this. So what we're going to do is we're going to bend it so it stays into place. I'm going to start at the bottom, go in like that. Go in like that so it's captured nicely. And now it's going to be difficult to grab it up here, so I've got this dental tool that I'm going to use and just kind of bend this wire out so I can get it out in front of the crystal. This is the tricky part. Okay, like that. See how I got a good area there? We're going to do the same thing on the other side while we're at it. Without stabbing myself. I'm going to bend that in. We're going to come over, we're going to grab this, we're going to bend that in. Okay, and then we're going to do the bottom here. Same thing here. Pretty much so it looks like this. And this, I'm going to bring this out a little bit. It's just a big crystal and we're not capturing it very well. There we go. this up. Okay, so this wire that we have down here at the bottom I'm going to use for decoration. I'm just going to go around, make a design out of it, or at least try to. Something like that. And now to terminate the end, I'm just going to kind of turn this in, and then we're going to tuck it into that pendant like that. And then we're going to push this in. So there's no sharp edges to get caught on your clothes or in your hair or anything. And then what we're left with is that. So this top one, I'm going to basically just bring around. I'm going to tighten it up here. And then we're going to terminate this one, just like we did the bottom one. I'm going to bring that in, crimp it. Then we're going to do the rosette. So it looks like that. My name's Eli, so I put a little E. That's kind of like my trademark. Okay, so now this is the back, and it looks great, but this is the front. I try to make both sides look nice, so if it flips over while you're wearing it, you really can't tell that it's going the wrong way. We're just going to bring this out some more. I'm going to give this a little bend here. Yeah, that's really grabbing that crystal much better now. So it's nice and tight. It's not going to fall out. So you don't want to lose your Herkimer. So I'm going to bend this out of the way. That looks fantastic. Okay, so now all that's left to do is to make the bail and terminate the ends. So we want to work with the last two wires back here. That's going to make the bail. So every other wire we can bend down. That's what I'm going to do. Get them out of the way because we're not using them. Okay, so this guy and this guy. We're just going to bring these down out of the way. So now we're left with this. So what I do is bend it back and forth with your fingers until these are nice and parallel. They're right next to each other. It might take a little while, but then you'll end up with that. Then what I do is I cheat, and I have a little piece of round stock that I use. You could use a pencil. You could use anything round for this. And I bring this up in the air a little bit, and I just bring this right over. Like that. Pull that out. Now I use my pliers, and I grab it down here. I bend it like a 45-degree angle, bend it up, and then bring it in. And that makes our bail. Like that. So then what I do is take this, and I go right over top of that and curl it around under the other wires like that. That way it locks the bail in. And then what I'll do is I'll find another one and I'll go the opposite direction. That way it's nice and locked in. And I'm going to go under these other wires too. That way it's nice and clean when we clean up the wires at the end. So you can see our pendant starting to take shape. Now all that's left is to terminate these leftover wires. So I kind of like this coming down around like that, like an S shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make that part of a design. I'm just going to go ahead and turn this in. And do like that. That doesn't look bad at all. That looks great. This nice little line up here kind of really gives it a nice look. So this is going to be a beautiful pendant when it's done. Okay, so I'm just going to grab my cutters. I'm going to cut this nice and short. These are already short, but I'm going to shorten them up just a little bit more. Okay, now we're going to do the rosettes. So we're going to turn them each one we're going to do an opposite direction. So this one I'm going to turn it to the right, crimp it. I'm just going to turn it in. like that. So see, this one we went to the right, so this one we're going to go to the left, turn it backwards, and every other one is going to be opposite to give it a nice look. So this one, we go this way, bend it in. So we're going to go this way. Same thing, crimp that. And again, we want to tuck that in as tight as possible so you don't catch it on your clothes or your hair or what have you. And we're just left with these last two. And I forgot to turn that one the opposite way, so I just bent it around like that. And this one I'm going to bend to the side, crimp it, and just turn it. Basically, I'm just tucking these in like that. And there you go. This is actually the front of the pendant here. And also, what I use for the necklace cord is Lovely Knots Asian knotting cord. It's 2mm. You can buy it by the roll. It's much stronger than your it's much stronger than the standard black cord that you buy. This is almost like paracord that doesn't have the middle part, the bungees inside. So then I just cut this. Put that through here. And then what I do for the knot, I actually tie a knot in one of the strings like that. Then I put the other one through it, make it tight, then it becomes adjustable, and then whatever length you would like, then you can just tie it off, pull it tight, and then you can burn these with a Bic lighter and squeeze them, and then you end up with your nice pendant. And there's one last step. You must de-dork your necklace. For anybody that wears necklaces know that the knot always comes down to the bottom of the pendant. So what you do is you take a piece of your silver 21 gauge, the half round, and you bind it down here so that the knot stays at the top and doesn't spin around while you're wearing it and annoy you like all day. So it's very simple. Just wrap this around.
That one.
Just wrap this around a couple times.
De-dorking it.
And you de-dork your necklace. The first one never comes out right, so I just wind it like 3 times and then find where it gets goofy and cut it. So you end up with that. Then I just give it a nice little crimp. And you can see the little phrase right here. You can burn that with a lighter, it'll disappear. But there's your de-dorked pendant. And that's how you do it.
There's a little Groot that Eli gave me. Made it with a 3D printer. And there's one last look at the pendant.